This episode is brought to you by Honda. Introducing the all-new, all-terrain Honda Passport Trail Sport, the most off-road capable Honda Passport Honda has ever dreamt up. The Passport features increased ground clearance, roof rails on all trims, and available specially developed all-terrain tires. And you'll stay comfortable with tri-zone climate control and available features like heated and ventilated front seats and a panoramic moonroof. Learn more at honda.com/passport.
This is the Michael K. Show podcast.
I gotta get more K.
Listen live weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN, the ESPN New York app, and your smart speaker.
And a good afternoon, everybody. This is indeed the Michael K. Show. We thank you for joining us on this Thursday, February 27th. It's 2025. Kind of an overcast, rainy day here in New York City. But we will make it sunshiny for you over the next 2 hours. We got a big show. We have a lot to do. And, of course, we want to make you part of it. So you know the rules of engagement. I'm doing the show alone, but I'm doing it with you. So you then become a co-host. And the way you become a co-host is you dial in to 1-800-919-3776. A couple of things I want to start off with. Listen, a win is a win is a win is a win. And I get it. I get it. I understand it. You know, wins are hard to come by. But they shouldn't be as hard to come by as it was last night for the Knicks. So the Knicks squeaked by the 76ers. The 76ers are dreadful. The Knicks built up a 19-point lead and gave it all back and were trailing by 4 with about 2 minutes left in the game. And if not for the brilliance of Jalen Brunson, there's no way they win that game. Brunson was otherworldly. Do you realize that the team that they beat yesterday by the skin of their teeth, the 76ers, had lost their previous game on Monday to the Bulls by over 30 points? I'm sorry. It's not a good look for the Knicks. They got embarrassed by Cleveland. They got embarrassed by Boston. Don't tell me it was just 13 points. It was an embarrassment. An embarrassment. You would think that the proper motivation was there. What's up with this team all of a sudden? Now, I know Cat didn't play yesterday. I get it. But guess what? Joel Embiid didn't play. Kind of balances out, don't you think? And you can't say Cat didn't play when you had a 19-point lead and you gave it all back. Did you hear the Garden yesterday when the Knicks were trailing by 4? Did you hear them? It's a scary time right now. Now the next game is going to be tomorrow against Memphis. Memphis is really good. Memphis is not a pushover. And the game's in Memphis. So what are the Knicks going to do then? What are they going to do then? We'll see if Mitchell Robinson plays. Everybody seems to be saying that Mitchell Robinson is the be-all, end-all. That everything's going to change with Mitchell Robinson. I think that some of the things that are problematic, they will change. He's a rim protector. He moves Karl Anthony Towns to a 4. All of that. Get it. He's not going to be able to play more than 15 to 18 minutes at the beginning. They can't push this guy. He's injury prone. It's a problematic time now if you're a Knicks fan. They've proven they can't beat OKC. And by the way, the Nets gave OKC a harder time than the Knicks have given OKC. The Nets last night. They can't beat Boston, and they can't beat Cleveland. Boston and Cleveland are in front of them, and Mike Lupica brought up something really interesting on the show yesterday. Detroit yesterday beat Boston. The Knicks might match up with Detroit in the first round, so we're all talking about, well, they got to get out of the second round. You know what? They might not get out of the first round. Who's guarding Cade Cunningham? The Knicks are not a great defensive team. They're not. They've got nice players, and I said this the other day. I think I said it on Tuesday. They're a really good team. They are not a great team. They're not. And you can't tell me that having Mitchell Robinson activated off the IL, that makes them a great team. It doesn't. It patches up some of the holes. Your finger can go into the dike a little bit, but there's still leaks. It's not a great defensive team. Karl Anthony Towns not a great defender. Jalen Brunson, as great as he is not a great defender. He is not. I give credit yesterday. Mikal Bridges, who's been awful of late, had 19 points in the first quarter. 19 points. So that tells you something. It's in there. They need to be healthy, and I know what Tom Thibodeau says, and I agree with him for the most part. The bottom line is you've got to be a team that's going to be peaking when the playoffs happen. But my question to you, all of you, what's peaking for this team? What's peaking? Like the old song, is that all there is? I don't know. Because don't you think that the Boston Celtics are going to work to peak right at the playoffs? So they'll be peaking. Cleveland has a very deep team. They'll be peaking. I'm not even worried about OKC. Boy, if they get to play OKC, I'll throw a party. Because if they play OKC in the postseason, you know what that means? They're in the championships. They're in the NBA Finals. Can you beat Detroit the way it is right now? I don't think you could beat Boston. That would be your second round matchup. And I don't think that you could beat Cleveland. I thought that Brian Windhorst had a very interesting comment. He said maybe this is not the year for the Knicks, but the Knicks are set up to be together for a long time. Those other teams, they might not be. It might be a war of attrition. We'll see. We shall see. But after getting knocked out of the playoffs 2 years in a row, and then you make the trade for Cat, and then you make the trade for Mikal Bridges, you expect better things. You expect to go a little bit further. I don't think they are. When you see a game like yesterday, that was really distressing. You got to play better than that because the Sixers stink. And they got good players, too. You got George, you got Maxey. I understand they've got decent players. But their record would tell you that they're awful. And the way they play against the Bulls on Monday would tell you that they're awful. So you can't sit back and go, yeah, we're good. No, you're not good. There's something missing. There's something missing, and everybody seems to lean back on the fact, well, that something missing happens to be Mitchell Robinson. Really? Does that ring true to you? Now, Mitchell Robinson was playing great basketball before he got hurt. But does that ring true that a guy that doesn't have much of an offensive game and happens to be a great rebounder and a great defender, that's the difference that puts them over the top against teams like Boston and Cleveland? Well, what worries me is the way they're playing against everybody, because before they lost to Cleveland by 37 points, the game before that they had a squeak by Chicago. That was on Thursday. Chicago is not that great. Shouldn't have to squeak by them. They did. Then they get blown out by Cleveland. They get blown out by Boston. And then they squeak by the 76ers. So I'm a little bit worried. At the start of the show, I said, a win is a win is a win. But sometimes there's a little less luster on some wins. This win had the feeling of a sigh of relief. There's no celebration there. And I know what Tom Thibodeau always says. It's better to have teaching moments when you come off a victory than after a loss. So, yeah, he could teach some because they won that game, and it would have been harder to teach off that loss if they blew that lead and ended up not coming back. But why do you have to have any kind of lessons off a 76er game? Why? Somebody explain that to me. 1-800-919-3776. Let's go to the phones. Let's get you involved early. Let's go to OG all the way in Sacramento. OG.
Good morning, Michael. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
Okay, listen, let me say this first off. I'm a Knicks fan from way, way back, and I remember you when you first started writing for the Post and the Daily News. You're a great guy. I loved your work.
Oh, thanks, man.
Really, great for me. Yeah, this is really great for me to get on the line with you. I'm an old school Knicks fan. I go way back. Way back. I've seen the 2 championships. My dad used to take me to the Knicks games when they played at the Old Garden on 50th and 8th. He'd buy tickets right near game time Tuesday night. And, we'd have, almost like 5 rows from courtside, double headers, right?
Right.
So, my thing with it, yeah. my thing with the Knicks is, like, okay, watching them, I mean, this, New York fans, and we do that with all our teams. We get excited and hype in championships. Don't get me wrong. I can't take these smackdowns from the Cavs and the Celtics, but I'm being realistic on where we are. This is a tweaking year. Like you said earlier, these guys are young, locked into contracts and stuff like that. Managing the new salary cap might be rough. But my watching them is, I never thought it would be this year anyway. I'm thinking next year. As I said, I don't like the way they're playing. I'm wondering about Tibbs, because this is not a Tibbs team as far as defense, all right? But my thing for next year is that what do we do in the next season? Because do we get rid of Mikal Bridges? As he's tradable. He's under a contract like Julius Randle that he's not really signed. I mean, so he could be a trade chip if we need to move on.
Yeah, but I don't think that he really made himself more valuable than 5 first-round draft picks by this year so far. His strength is his availability. His best ability is his availability, and he's a good, he's got long arms and can defend. But I thought there'd be much more offensively. I know he's the third option. I get it. But I thought he'd be better than this. And they have a decision to make. If they don't trade him, he's eligible for a 4-year, $156 million contract. I don't know if I'd give that to him. I mean, you gave such big money to OG Anunoby, and then you lucked out because Jalen Brunson gave you a huge discount. So while Brunson got a big discount, you're going to bestow that sort of contract on this guy who hasn't played that great? Bridges hasn't played that great. Let's go to Dave in Portchester. Dave.
Hey, how you doing, Michael?
Good, Dave. What's up, man?
Oh, nothing much, guy. Listen, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, Mitchell Robinson, all these guys on the radio and media, when he comes back, this is going to happen. This is not a Tibbs team, this and that. How do you feel personally that 99.9% you can predict the next season right now? I don't like that. They're going to play the Celtics in the second round, and they're going to lose. No matter what they do, no matter what kind of game plan he comes out with Thibodeau, no matter what the guy does, I don't care. Mitchell Robinson's not Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, okay? When he comes back, they're losing to Boston. They're going to, you know it, I know it, every fan who has any brains knows that. Here's my question. My question is, once they do lose to Boston, and I'm not thinking about this because of what happened last night or what happened a week ago when they lost to Boston, what are they going to do? Don't they need another player? I'm really down on Mikal Bridges just like you are. I mean, it's the same thing. He's not the type of player that I thought. I didn't watch him enough. I didn't know too much about him, but they need something else. They need, I don't want to say KD because everybody's blasting me. No, we can't trade Hart and Bridges for KD. It's not going to work. He has no
for who?
Blah, blah, blah.
Who are you trade for?
I'm talking about if you took Hart and Bridges and traded them for Kevin Durant. Some people would say, no, then they have less of a bench and da-da-da-da. What do you think they're going to do when they lose to Boston in the second round?
Well, I think that they're going to hope from attrition. And really, the Boston thing's not a fait accompli. Maybe Boston stubs it too on the first round. I don't think that's going to happen. The worst thing that happened to the Knicks, I think, was that the Cleveland Cavaliers became as great as they did. They brought in an excellent coach, which shame on Brooklyn for ever getting rid of Kenny Atkinson. So they brought in an excellent coach, and they're leading the conference, which drops Boston down to second. So in the Knicks' mind, what they thought they were going to be was they were going to be the number 2, and Boston was going to be number 1, and then Cleveland would be 3 or 4. But Cleveland is outplayed that, and Cleveland now leads the conference. So they'll finish 1, Boston will finish 2, and that puts the Knicks on a crash course with Boston. So Cleveland's ascension is what hurt the Knicks the most. Because if the Knicks finished second, they would not have had to deal with Boston till later in the conference finals. Now, by finishing third and Boston finishing second, that becomes your second-round opponent. So that had nothing to do with the Knicks. That had to do with Cleveland. Now, what do they do over the offseason? Not sure. They have maneuverability, they have tradable contracts, the whole deal. But some of it's going to be a type of deal that will get you nervous. Do I want to do this? Do I want to trade Josh Hart? I think they would trade Mikal Bridges in a heartbeat. And do you want to, you said KD. Do you want to trade for a guy who's, in his late 30s now? And he's hurt all the time too. 1-800-919-3776. Roy in Patterson. Roy.
Hey, good afternoon, Michael. It's a pleasure talking with you.
What's going on, Roy?
Hey, buddy. Listen, I believe that Leon Rose is partly to blame for a lot of this stuff because of the fact that there were centers available that we could have gotten and obtained for draft picks or what have you that we didn't take. And it doesn't make sense for us to go ahead and wish on a star with regards to Mitchell Robinson. He's hurt every single year, and we wasted a lot of time and wanted to go ahead and get your thoughts.
Well, who were the centers that they passed on, Roy?
There was a guy that Walter Knichel or what have you from out in, I think it was in Phoenix, and other guys that were also available at this time frame. They were available, but they passed on them.
But there's it's so much more complicated than that, Roy, because they're right at the level of the second apron, so they can't get over that. Then you got to trade salary for salary. They don't want to get over the second apron because that's what the Knicks are hoping that's going to derail the Celtics. The Celtics are way over the second apron. So are the Golden State Warriors. That limits what you can do. The worst thing that happened to the Knicks was the stupid rule in the basic agreement that they were not allowed to sign Isaiah Hartenstein. This is a whole different team if they have Hartenstein. Whole different. Their bench is better. Their defense is better. Their energy is better. And it's not like they didn't want him. They did, but they can only offer him a certain amount of money. And then OKC, which could offer him anything they wanted because they were underneath the cap, they were able to just blow him away with $30 million a year. That's the problem. That's the problem. And they looked at it and said, okay, we have Mitchell Robinson under contract, so our best bet this year is to roll the dice and hope that he gets better. I kind of agree with it. Who are they going to get that was available that would be better than a healthy Mitchell Robinson? Think about that. I don't know if that player was out there. So, yeah, Mitchell Robinson's always hurt, but when he's healthy, he is a difference maker. But I don't think he's enough of a difference maker to get them past Boston in the second round. And again, once more, they got to worry about Detroit in the first round, if that's the way it sets up. Let's go to Steve in Hackensack. Steve, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Good.
You know what? You kind of took a little, kind of what I was going to say, but I put this on the GM. I mean, like this caller said about there's really nothing Thibodeau could do. If you go back to when they traded for OG, I mean, they won a ridiculous amount of games in a row. They beat some really good teams. I mean, they were just so gritty, you know, just a fun team to watch. Other teams, I'm sure, hated having to play them.
Right.
And I can't, I mean, when the trades happened, I couldn't get out of my mind. I mean, I know Randall, DiVincenzo aren't necessarily lighting it up, but Hartenstein, is probably the biggest one. But why not just run with your guys and maybe make some minor adjustments for the bench?
But Steve, I mean, don't you think that having Karl Anthony Towns is better than having Randall and DiVincenzo? That's a deal you have to make.
I think for this specific team, I mean, did you see that second round with all the injuries? If they could have stayed healthy, they had a legit shot last year, at least going to potentially the finals. Like, they had a legit chance if they had all their guys. With how we only had a small sample size from when they acquired OG and went on that great run, and were playing just phenomenal basketball, and probably would have only got better.
I think what we're doing, Steve, is we're romanticizing Julius Randle, who was a good player and a good Knick. He was a flawed player who did not really fit schematically with Brunson. This opens up more of the floor for Brunson because Karl Anthony Towns is not parked downstairs. He's not. Julius Randle needed the ball, and the ball stuck to him. So that's a deal I make 100 times out of 100 times. I don't let the fact that DiVincenzo was a glue guy, an important guy for them, that wouldn't have stood in the way. There's a no-brainer, Julius Randle for Karl Anthony Towns. Yeah, did it hurt about DiVincenzo? Yeah, but it doesn't hurt enough that I would consider the trade a bad one. When you say it's the GM's fault, you know, the fact that they're a really great team is also the GM's fault. He's been unbelievable. He and his staff have been unbelievable. There's one trade that you can doubt. One trade you could second guess. One. And that's the 5 draft picks. 5 first-round draft picks for Mikal Bridges. It hasn't worked out so far. Maybe it does. Maybe he becomes a better fit as they get closer to the playoffs. He hasn't. He's been very, very inconsistent. He has not been the player I thought he was going to be. Just hasn't been. So I look at it and I go, that's the one trade that I second guess. I don't trade the OG. I don't second guess the OG trade. R.J. Barrett was a limited player. Quickly was a nice player, but please, I'd rather have OG. I thought that was a great trade. Now, the signing, he got top dollar because he showcased himself on the biggest stage in New York and showed everybody that he's a great player. So they had to pay him $40 million a year. Probably an overpay, but that's the price of doing business in the NBA. But I don't look at the Karl Anthony Towns deal I would make every single time it was presented to me. This guy's a transformative player. I mean, how many 7-foot guys are three-point threats? And he's second in the NBA in rebounds. He's had a great year. Yeah, he's not a great defender. That's why Mitchell Robinson becomes valuable. That's why the Timberwolves got Rudy Gobert. Let Rudy Gobert play center. Let him be the rim protector, and then let Karl Anthony Towns kind of roam from there. Let's go to Joseph in Jersey City. Joseph?
Yeah, how you doing, Mike?
Good. What's up, man?
Listen, good, man. I agree with you most of the things you're saying, Mike, as far as but I think that there's some variables. The team is run down. It was fool's gold at the beginning of the year. They win a lot of games, and these guys have these lower body injuries. They're beat. I'm looking at Anunoby. He is beat. He can't even make a layup now. And like you said, the money spent on him, look, I think they need to play more of these guys. That short rotation is killing them now. Any championship team, they all have big rotations. All the ones that win. You cannot have an 82-game schedule and play 7 to 8 guys. And Tibbs can't develop players. He does not.
Yeah, but one thing, though, Joseph, if you look at when a team gets into the playoffs, it becomes a short rotation. So what you're saying is have a longer rotation so they're not as tired in the playoffs. These guys want to play. Josh Hart wants to play. Mikal Bridges wants to play. Jalen Brunson wants to play. Were those injuries last year because of fatigue? Julius Randle's shoulder got separated. It wasn't because of fatigue. So, yeah, I don't buy into that minutes police stuff. I mean, that seems to be the thing that everybody's leaning on. I don't agree with it. And he's been using the bench more. He's been using Payne. He's been using Shamet. He's been using Precious Achiuwa. He used Huck Porter yesterday. Started him, and then he got hurt. They've been using the bench, and the bench will get longer, and he'll trust them more. And McBride, I left out McBride, when Mitchell Robinson comes back. Because that could actually push Mikal Bridges or Josh Hart to the bench. That's a really good bench piece. Now, I don't think that Mitchell Robinson's going to start, but one of those guys is going to go to the bench during that time, so his rotation will be different. I don't think their problems right now is that they're tired. I think their problem is this. They don't have great defenders on the team, and that has nothing to do with them being fatigued. Brunson's not a good defender. Cat's not a good defender. They're just not. And I believe that there's some tentative nature to OG now after he hurt the foot. Now, he was on the postgame show on the radio yesterday, and he told Tyler, I feel great. And he said it so quickly, I'm not sure he feels great. I think he's somewhat tentative with that foot. And even when he was out for the 5 games, you know what? The Knicks were 4-1. So OG healthy is a force. He's a force defensively. He's a force with the three-pointer from the corner. I just look at it right now. I don't think the Knicks are playing poorly. I mean, against bad teams. I mean, yesterday they played poorly. I don't think they played poorly per se against Cleveland and against Boston. They're not as good as them. They shouldn't be beating them. Should they be getting blown out? No. No, they shouldn't be getting blown out. But I just wonder about, Tibbs is a defensive coach, and this is not a good defensive team. They don't have good defensive players. Interesting stuff coming out of the Combine with the New York Giants and their quarterback hunt. So Art Stapleton of NJ.com had a report out that if the Giants don't trade for Stafford, they'll trade up the number 1 in the draft. So they become a win-now team We'll talk to Art Stapleton live from Indianapolis in just a moment, so stay tuned for that here on the show. Hey, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just beginning on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting. So even if you miss the first few minutes of the game or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can make your picks from the first whistle until the final buzzer. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now's the perfect time to join. New FanDuel customers get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/K to join today. That's FanDuel.com/K for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
When you're a small business owner, having your bookkeeping and taxes in order comes at a cost. I'm not just talking about your money. I'm talking about your time, hours and hours that you could have spent actually growing your business. But guess what? It doesn't have to be that way thanks to Found. Found is a banking platform that doesn't just consolidate your financial ecosystem. Found automates manual activities like expense tracking and finding tax write-offs. Found makes staying on top of invoices and payments so easy. Oh, and by the way, other small businesses are loving Found too. This Found user said, quote, "Found is going to save me so much headache. It makes everything so much easier. Expenses, income, profits, taxes, invoices even," unquote. And Found has 30,000 five-star reviews just like this. Open a Found account for free at found.com/sports. That's found.com/sports. Found is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services are provided by Piermont Bank, member FDIC. Don't put this one off. Join thousands of small business owners who have streamlined their finances with Found.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Art Stapleton is at the Combine in Indianapolis, and you can read him on northjersey.com. And as I mentioned before the break, Art Stapleton put out a report that if the Giants don't trade for Matthew Stafford, he thinks they're going to trade up to number 1 in the draft. So that caught my eye, and I said, let's get Art on, and Art's with us right now. Art, how you doing?
What's up, Michael? How you doing? How's the family? Hope everybody's well.
Everybody's great. Hope the same thing's going on with you. So I want to start off this way, and I said this on yesterday's show. I think the Giants have put themselves into a situation by retaining Shane and Dable and not giving them more of a runway and saying, oh, they're going to be here for 3 or 4 years. Both of them know they've got to win next year, so they're probably going to do things that are good for next year but not good for the future of the team. Is that the way they're looking at it? Because if you trade for Matthew Stafford at 37, I don't think that's a move you make for the long-term future of the team.
Yeah, it depends on the price, Michael, but I certainly can understand why people would think that. I mean, that you said it. That's the way it's set up right now. I mean, if you bring back a team, you bring back team brass that's under pressure to, as John Mara said, I want to feel better this time next year than I do today, which was the day after the season. Well, you would infer that that means you have to win games. And, you know, he didn't put a number on it. You know, this team is now facing the Super Bowl champion yet again in their division, and they have a brutal schedule next year. So at face value, you're saying, okay, well, let's not throw a Hail Mary from Joe Shane's perspective, but you've got to do what you got to do in order to be able to convince ownership that this is heading in the right direction. Now, let's see what the price tag is for Stafford before, you know, we see that get consummated. But I do think that they're probably behind the Raiders right now in that race based on everything that I'm hearing at the Combine. So we'll see. We'll see what they have to do in terms of what they're going to do for quarterback, because the only quarterback on the roster right now, Michael, is Tommy DeVito. And no disrespect to Tommy DeVito, considering he's won more games for their quarterbacks the last 2 years than anyone else. But he's not the starter going into this season.
All right, so I mean, the Stafford thing is fascinating. Obviously, still a good quarterback. Almost beat the Eagles. I mean, they gave the Eagles the biggest scare in the postseason. But if you look at it, what is it going to take to get him? If they want the number 3 pick in the draft, I say take it easy. I don't want to do it. So what would be the price? And would the Giants be willing to pay this guy $50 million a year?
It's a great question, and I think that's kind of the unknown at this point. And look, if you're going to convince Matthew Stafford to go to either the Giants or the Raiders, who are losing teams right now, they're picking in the top 10. I know Tom Brady is at the Raiders, but guess what? You know, Ben Johnson was being recruited by Tom Brady, and he picked the Bears over the Raiders to be the head coach, right? I mean, so this idea that just because Tom Brady was on a ski slope yesterday and he ran into Matthew Stafford doesn't necessarily mean that Stafford all of a sudden is going to become a Raider. I mean, I got to imagine, you know, maybe a day 2 pick, maybe a second-round pick or a third-round pick. The big thing for the Rams is their contract relief. They have a 37-year-old quarterback with a quarterback guru as a head coach, and if he's looking to move on from Matthew Stafford, why would the Rams in that position want to move past them? So if I'm thinking Stafford's perspective, it's going to take a contract of $50 million annual per year to get Stafford here. Now, you could play games with the salary cap and add void years and lower the hit every year and all that stuff, the inside football, if you will. But the bottom line is it's going to take money. And I think that's the big thing here. If the Rams decided they do not want to pay Matthew Stafford, they're making that decision not necessarily based on the package of picks that they're getting back. I think they're just making it based on they're going to now get that money that Stafford is not going to be owed, and now all of a sudden they can use that money on bringing in another quarterback and maybe bringing in more talent at different positions to kind of compensate for losing Stafford.
Now, there was a report yesterday that Aaron Rodgers had reached out to the Giants. Is there any validity to that? And would the Giants be interested in Aaron Rodgers as a stopgap?
No, I was told that has not happened. The Giants have not spoken to Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers has not reached out to the Giants. So that was a rumor that I found unfounded. But let's be honest, the Giants are desperate. It's a game of musical chairs. The music is still playing. The last thing the Giants can do right now is take a chair out of the mix. So they're not going to rule out Aaron Rodgers, but, you know, I think there are a lot of options before Aaron Rodgers that the Giants are looking at. And to be quite honest, I think Rodgers is probably looking at several other options in his mind before the Giants. But could it get to that point? Well, it depends on when the music stops, who's sitting in chairs and who's left with no quarterbacks or no jobs.
All right, so let's look at if they don't get Stafford, and it's before they would consider Rodgers. You're saying that they're going to trade up. Are they in love with Ward? Is that it?
I don't think it's a matter of being in love with those guys. I think it's personally, and from people I've spoken to, it's the idea of, can you leave that to chance on draft night? You've got to check out the price. Now, obviously, you're not going to give up a number 1 pick to move up. But if the Titans are sitting there at 1 and they've made the decision that they're not going to take a quarterback, and they think that they want, you know, either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, and they know if they move down to 3, they can get one of those 2 guys. The Giants will have to pay to get up, but, you know, maybe it's a second-round pick and a third-round pick, something to that effect. And it just gives the Giants the peace of mind knowing that whatever quarterback they want, they're going to have that rookie. Because if they go into the draft thinking that, maybe they sign a Jacoby Brissett or a Russell Wilson in free agency or something to that nature, now you're going into draft night. What if something shocking happens? And all of a sudden, like last year, Atlanta picking Penix, where no one thought he was going. What if the Raiders do make a play for Shedeur Sanders all of a sudden and say, you know what, we're going to give the house to get up to 1, and then Cleveland all of a sudden wants to take Cam Ward? Now you're the Giants sitting there. Yes, the consolation prize is Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, but now you're left with a quarterback who, at this point, they're at the end of their they're at the end of their career, and the Giants don't have one. So I think that's the bold move that they end up making if they don't get Stafford, because I think they have to guarantee themselves getting their number 1 quarterback. This isn't a situation where you can sit there and say, well, we'll just take whoever's left on the board. If they do that, then they're basically putting themselves even further along, kind of in that walk in the plank scenario this season.
If they would make a trade for Stafford, though, doesn't it make sense to also get a quarterback, a young quarterback that could play behind him?
It does to me, Michael. I've heard some people and some of my colleagues have kind of ripped that idea, the idea that if they don't have to give away the number 3 pick, and I don't believe they will, if they do somehow get Matthew Stafford, why wouldn't you draft a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward if they're sitting there? Or are there other guys that you look at as more developmental prospects, and maybe you move up into the teens in the first round that you sit at 3, you take either Hunter or the pass rusher in Carter, and then maybe you come back into the first round if you like a Jackson Dart, if you like a Tyler Shuck from Louisville or something to that effect. I think that is also an idea. I would not go into this season if it's not Matthew Stafford. Because I saw the same thing that you did last year. I mean, I thought Matthew Stafford, sure, there are issues with his back. There were some games that he missed. But when he's at the top of his game, I mean, he's a better quarterback than anyone the Giants have had since primetime Eli. I mean, you'd have to go back to probably, the couple years after the Super Bowl where they kind of betrayed Eli with the offensive line struggles and everything else. But Matthew Stafford, where he is now, would still be a significant upgrade at quarterback. And if that's the case, then I'm still looking for a developmental guy. But I'm saying, you know what? Then if I'm tying my program to Matthew Stafford, I'm going the next 2 years with Matthew Stafford, and I'm worrying about what I'm doing after that. But at this point, I'm looking at a quarterback too and saying, why not? You're probably going to have to sign one or trade for one, and you're probably going to have to draft one.
Before I let you go, here's my question. I don't know if you can even have an answer. Why would Matthew Stafford, other than $50 million a year, want to play for the Giants, who don't have a great offensive line? Why would he do that?
Well, the only thing a lot of stuff has been talked about, family, and his wife, Kelly, has a podcast. She has a lot of stuff going on with media. So maybe there's been talk that maybe she wants to get out of and away from L.A. and the way, they're breaking down their program a little bit. Cooper Kupp, they already said that they're not going to bring him back. Does Stafford see the writing on the wall a little bit, knowing that, hey, look, do I get Kirk Cousins this year? And what I mean by that is, do the Rams love a quarterback in the second round or the third round? Say they love Jalen Milroe from Alabama, and all of a sudden Sean McVay and Les Snead draft Jalen Milroe. Well, 3 weeks into the season, if the Rams are struggling or Stafford's struggling a little bit, now does Stafford end up getting put to the sideline because it's time to see this rookie? So that could be one of those situations. And look, I still think from everybody I talked to here, Michael, we know it seems like the entire city of New York and New Jersey area is all down on Brian Daboll. You still talk to people in the NFL. There are a lot of people who still believe in Brian Daboll as an offensive mind and as I don't want to say quarterback whisperer, but somebody who can work with quarterbacks. Maybe Stafford likes that idea. Maybe he talked to somebody who knows Daboll. I mean, look, they just hired his brother-in-law, right? I mean, his brother-in-law is now going to be the assistant quarterbacks coach here, Chad Hall. He was up in Buffalo with Daboll and Shane they wanted to hire him a couple of years ago to be their wide receivers coach, and Buffalo wouldn't let him out of the contract. So there's that family connection here, and, maybe Stafford looks at it and says, you know what, I'll give it a shot. They'll build what they got to build, and I'll make my $50 million, and I'll see if I can, turn this team from a 3-win team to an 8 or 9-win team. And if that can happen, then maybe Stafford looks at it and says, you know what, maybe I got one more in me next year, and they're in a much better place than what they were this year. So I do think the family stuff may have something to do with it, at least the allure of coming to the Giants.
All right, Art, thank you so much. You could read Art, as I mentioned, at NorthJersey.com. We appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Appreciate it.
You got it. So that's Art Stapleton, covers the Giants for NorthJersey.com. Again, it comes down to this, everybody. I don't want to keep harping on it, but you can't make decisions in space where you go, okay, we're going to bring back Dable and Shane. We're going to bring them back, but with no commitment to keeping them for a long time. You're coming off a 3-win season. So now these two guys know they've got to put up or shut up. That's a good position to be in, but that also does not play into the long-term viability of the team. If they knew that they had 3 years after this, wouldn't the better move be go draft a quarterback, develop him, and then have something stable for the next 15 years? Instead, they're trading for Matthew Stafford. It's a team with holes, the Giants, and if they trade for Matthew Stafford, they're going to have to give up draft capital. Whether it's a second or third round pick, they're giving up draft capital. They're going to tie up $50 million a year. Because the Giants didn't have the conviction of saying, we want these guys back, these guys are the answer, and they're going to be here for the next 4 years. Instead, you got that same old tired refrain from John Mara. Well, we want to play important games in December. Well, the only important games they played in December lately is where their draft positioning is going to be. Had nothing to do with playoff positioning. So now you're forcing two of these guys to make moves for now with no regard for later. That's not a good way to run a team. It's not. And I'll tell you what, Shane has not been that impressive as a GM. He's made some good picks and some awful ones. How's the Darren Waller trade look? And I'm not even going to rip him for the Barkley deal. I'm not going to rip him. I think he misplayed his hand, but even if they had Barkley this year, what were they, a 5-win team? They don't have a quarterback. He made a mistake with the fifth-year with not picking up the fifth-year option from Daniel Jones. If he had picked up that fifth-year option, that fifth year would have been the bad year for Daniel Jones. They never would have gotten into that contract. So everybody sits back and they celebrate the guy and they go, well, you know what? He fashioned the contract that they were only liable for the 2 years. Okay, those 2 years set them back. Cost them $80 million. It was not a good signing. And the coach of the team is supposed to be a quarterback genius. He didn't see that Daniel Jones was limited? So the big mistake was not picking up the fifth-year option. Because that would have been the year that he crapped the bed, and then you would never have gotten into that big contract. And you would have been looking for a quarterback much earlier than you did. Much earlier. 1-800-919-3776. Game time. Brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey, because when it's game time, it's Tully time. At 7, the Islanders trying to bounce back from that awful loss to the Rangers at UBS. The Islanders are in Boston to play the Bruins. Tullamore Dew, the original triple distilled, triple blended, triple cask matured Irish whiskey. Be sure to grab a Tullamore Dew. Try the new Tullamore Dew Honey during tonight's action. Glasses up to enjoying Tullamore Dew responsibly. Now we're going to talk to Anthony DiComo at 2 o'clock. He covers the Mets for MLB.com. We'll talk to Anthony about the pitching situation and some of the questions surrounding the Mets. Who's going to be the backup infielder now that Madrigal is down? Those are some of the things we'll hit him with, so stay tuned for that. And I want to tell you about this. I'm Michael K. You know that. You're listening to the show. And I love when I get to talk about my friends at PC Richard & Son. It's a local company, family-owned, and I trust them. The experts at PC Richard & Son use a 4-step mattress fitting process so that your new bed fits you perfectly. They guarantee it. Right now, march into savings with up to 60% off Sealy Select mattresses, up to 75% off clearance floor models, and get up to $300 on Stearns & Foster and Tempur-Pedic that can be applied towards anything else in the store. That's right. So do what I do. Get to PC Richard & Son and march into savings for your new mattress.
As the number and severity of third-party breaches continue to rise, companies are increasingly vigilant, not just about how they handle their own data, but how their vendors do as well. For security and compliance leaders, this means more security reviews are coming across your desk every day, and valuable time is being wasted on manual security reviews. With Vanta Questionnaire Automation, security and compliance teams can complete security reviews up to 5 times faster, giving you time back to focus on running your security and compliance programs. Over 8,000 global companies like ZoomInfo, Smart Recruiters, and Noibu use Vanta to save time on security reviews. Visit vanta.com/podcast to learn more about questionnaire automation. That's VANTA.com/podcast. Grainger knows space at your facility is limited. As a maintenance specialist, you only have so many spots for backup products in your inventory roster, which means space on your bench comes at a premium. Well, when it comes to breadth and depth, Grainger's got you covered. They've got over 1 million industrial-grade products. Plus, fast delivery helps reduce the inventory you need to keep on hand, freeing up space and capital while giving your operation a winning edge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by a local branch. When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds or Skims, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%. Meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. The secret's out. Businesses that want to grow, grow with Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Untuckit uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/network, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/network to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/network.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, so the Combine is going on in Indianapolis, and yesterday there was some fireworks, but it wasn't through anybody employed by an NFL team. So when we were on the air yesterday, we reported the story by Jordan Schultz of Fox, who actually sent out an missive that Tom Brady had hosted Matthew Stafford in Montana, and they skied together, and they talked about Stafford possibly joining the Raiders. Well, about 20 minutes after that tweet was sent, and after we were off the air, Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, very responsible guy, writes that Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford ran into each other at a ski resort in Montana, and they spoke for a little bit. It was nothing planned, no recruiting, anything like that. Now, it makes sense because Matthew Stafford is still a member of the Raiders, still a member of the Rams, and Tom Brady has to be careful about tampering. Now, I know that Stafford and his agent were given the opportunity to talk to some teams about parameters of what they would be willing to pay him. I don't know if Tom Brady fell under that as one of the part owners of the Raiders. And, you can lose a first-round draft pick if you thought to be tampering. Anyway, I set that up because later on in the evening, Ian Rappaport was at a Starbucks in the hotel in Indianapolis. And Jordan Schultz came up to him and verbally accosted him at the NFL Media Center at the Indianapolis Starbucks on Wednesday afternoon. A report was then made to NFL Security, which is now investigating. Supposedly, Schultz got in the face of Rappaport and said, "Don't mess with me." Again, I'm just paraphrasing. But the reason I tell you this story, because the part of it that makes it somewhat intriguing, it was at a Starbucks. Jordan Schultz is the son of Howard Schultz, the founder and top shareholder of Starbucks. And to make matters worse, 2 hours ago, Adam Schefter sent out a tweet with a picture. Here it is, 2 hours ago. And it says Indianapolis, and it's a picture of the Starbucks logo, you know, the woman with the crown on her head, the green and white logo. And Schefter writes, head on a swivel. So now it's become a thing at the combine that, Schultz and Rappaport went at it, and the NFL security is indeed investigating. So I'm telling you, these NFL insiders, they want their stories, man. They don't like to be beaten, and they don't like being contradicted. So we'll see where that actually goes down. 1-800-919-3776. Let's go to Joe in Yonkers. Joe. Hello, Joe.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good.
Hey,
how
Mike,
are you?
Doing? I'm doing good. Thanks for taking the call, man.
You got it. Thanks for making it.
Yeah, of course. I was just thinking about the Knicks, man. I've been a big Knicks fan for a very long time. We've been suffering, and we have this little window right now. I know Durant is old, but this year is kind of a wash. I think we got to settle in for next year and close in on this gap on this window. What do you think about that?
You mean getting KD? KD's intriguing. I wouldn't give up a truckload for him. Remember, Phoenix gave up a truckload to get him. That's why the Nets are awash with 15 first-round draft picks. If I could get him at a reasonable cost in terms of talent or draft picks, I would do it. I wouldn't give up a Josh Hart or something like that. I'd give up a Mikal Bridges. Obviously, he has a history there. I'm not sure that would be enough. It's going to be interesting to see where KD ends up. He knows that they tried to trade him. So he probably does want to go somewhere. He didn't want to go somewhere in the middle of the year. He wants to be able to choose. I think the worst decision that KD ever made was not going to the Knicks and going to the Nets because of Kyrie Irving. Maybe that's something that still sticks in his craw. I know his business partner and his advisor, big Knick fan, and kind of was pushing him to go to the Knicks. Didn't happen. He followed Kyrie Irving, which was the bad guy to follow, and the whole thing fell apart in Brooklyn. So it'd be interesting to see how it comes down, where he does end up. Would I be interested in the Knicks? Yes, I would. Would I be interested in KD if I'm the Knicks? Yes, I would. But I'm not giving up a king's ransom for a 37-year-old. Hey, Pantera is coming to Northwell at Jones Beach Theater on July 26th and also PNC Bank Arts Center on July 31st. ESPN New York has your chance to score tickets to the venue of your choice on the ESPN New York app. Just scroll down the contest, submit your entry. It's brought to you by Live Nation. Tickets go on sale tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Ticketmaster.com. I like to read Anthony DiComo stuff on the Mets, so we said, let's pop him on. First time we'll have him on the Michael K. Show. He'll be on in a couple of minutes, talk about what's going on with the Mets in Port St. Lucie, so please stay tuned for that. Hey, maybe the off-season, but every season is Bigelow tea season. You know I'm picky about what I drink, especially on days I have a show. One of the first things I do each day is reach for a mug full of Bigelow tea. I love the different flavor options, and it's perfect for someone who makes his living behind a microphone. Want to know what keeps me going? Look no further than my cup of Bigelow tea next to me in the studio. So grab a mug full of your favorite Bigelow tea and tea proudly. Bigelow tea, the official hot tea of the New York Yankees.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
You know what? Check yourself.
Hear more from Michael K. weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN.
Suck it up and like it.
The ESPN New York app and your smart speakers.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out, it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate Pina Colada and Thai-iced coffee-flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
This is the Michael K. Show podcast.
I gotta get more K.
Listen live weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN, the ESPN New York app, and your smart speaker.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of the 2-hour radio program, the Michael K. Show. At 3 o'clock, it'll be Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg taking over for 4 hours. So this is the place to be, all local, all the time. And we thought it was proper to check in on the Mets. We've been talking about the Yankees yesterday, and I want to get the feel on the Mets. And who better to do that with than Anthony DiComo, who's the Met beat writer for MLB.com. He does a great job on that site, and he's nice enough to join us now. Anthony, how you doing?
Doing well, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing great. The injuries to the Met pitchers, Montas and Manaea, how concerning is that to the team, and where do they go from there? Do they still want to go with a six-man rotation? And who would those six men be if those two guys are out at the first month of the season?
Yeah, I'll answer the second part first. The Mets are done with the six-man idea, at least for now. And the whole point of that was they want to keep Kodai Senga on an extra day of rest, basically every turn through the rotation when they can. But even before the Manaea and Montas injuries, the Mets were kind of questioning that only because they have 3 off days and I believe the first 16 or 17 days of the season. So if you go a six-man right out of the chute, all of a sudden guys are going long stretches, week plus, without pitching, and they didn't really want that. So now with the injuries, the six-man is definitely out, and I'm not going to say permanently because if you get to a place later in the season when guys are healthy, then yeah, the Mets do still like the idea of it. But as far as what the injuries do to the rotation and to the depth, it is concerning in the respect that if you looked at this Mets roster heading into spring training, obviously you've got Juan Soto in, you've had another big offseason, all these good things were happening. But the weakness that I think a lot of people looked at was the starting rotation because there's just not a lot of ceiling there. There's not a lot of guys in that rotation, really anyone in that rotation that you could look at and say, you know what, that's a sure thing. I know this guy's going to give me 150-plus good innings this year. It was just really hard to do that, and now you're down 2 of your better guys, 2 of your guys who you were planning on being in that rotation from the jump. The good news is that what the Mets did do with their rotation this winter is they built it based on depth. They built it and tried to engineer it in such a way that if 1 or 2 guys went down, they could plug another 1 or 2 guys in and not miss a whole lot. So that's what they're banking on right now. Yes, Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas on paper are better than, say, Paul Blackburn and Griffin Canning. But the Mets feel comfortable with Paul Blackburn and Griffin Canning and Tyler McGill taking some of those innings, at least for the first month or 2 until they can get healthy. And then they'll see. Right now, they're not interested in Jose Quintana. They're not interested in going out and adding more. I think what they will be interested in is if they're still having these rotation issues around midseason, maybe then springing for a bigger deal for like a Dylan Cease type, and you're adding ceiling as well as fortifying that rotation at that point.
The Blackburn thing is interesting, obviously, because he had that surgery and he pitched yesterday. I think it was 8 pitches, something like that. Do you think that he could be ready to start at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I think he will be. It was 7 pitches yesterday, which was good and bad. You obviously want to see a little more work, and he threw a little in the bullpen, but the sinker was working for him, and that's the kind of pitcher he can be when he's on, is kind of getting weak contact, getting ground balls. But he'll be ready. He's ostensibly healthy. He should be there, and I would suspect he'll have a job in the opening day rotation with the injuries. But the Mets have some decisions. Really, you've got Kodai Senga, you've got David Peterson, and you've got Clay Holmes, who are your 3 starters who you can be certain are going to be there. Then you've got the next 3, which are Blackburn, Canning, and Tyler McGill. Blackburn and Canning are out of options, so you got to think they're going to be on the roster in some form or fashion. But McGill's the guy who keeps teasing this Mets coaching staff. He's got better stuff than the other 2 guys. He's flashed a lot of good upside in the past, especially down the stretch last year. He was great as the Mets were going towards the playoff run. He's never been able to put it together consistently over his career. So it's going to be an interesting decision to see if the Mets want to go with some more quote-unquote sure things with lower ceilings, and that's Blackburn and Canning, or a little bit of an upside play with McGill.
Anthony DiComo covers the Mets for MLB.com. Anthony, I think everything with the Met rotation plays off of Maeda. How is he Senga? I'm sorry, why Maeda? Senga has to be healthy. What's the outlook on him right now? How does he look? And do they think that he's going to be every 5-day starter, every 6-day starter if they go with 6 men? How does he look so far early?
right now he looks great. He's throwing in the mid-90s. He looks like Kodai Senga. And look, the thing with Senga is he's had this flash in his rookie year where he certainly looked like an ace at times. He has had control issues during his time here, but he has had more than anything these health issues that have prevented him from pitching. So right now he's healthy, but we've also heard this story before, and I think no one's going to be counting on him to be that guy until he actually goes out and does it. But you're absolutely right, Michael. Like, this is the linchpin to everything, because he's the one guy you can point to, even more than Sean Manaea, who is essentially the Mets ace last year. Kodai Senga is the one guy you could point to and say, if everything goes right for this dude, he can be a legitimate ace. He can be the type of guy that you would start game one in a playoff series and feel good about. Now, we haven't seen it mostly because of the health, but he has the talent. He can throw in the upper 90s. He's got that ghost fork that if he gets ahead in the count, it's just a devastating pitch. I mean, it's quite literally unhittable if he can get ahead in the count and throw that pitch. So he's the guy. Yeah, it all kind of revolves around him. And I think talking earlier about the rotation and what the Mets could potentially do mid-season, a lot of the reason why the Mets didn't go after the Max Frieds and Blake Snells of the world this offseason was because I think there was a chance, they think from within, maybe it's Senga, maybe it's Manaea, maybe Clay Holmes develops into this type of guy. But if they can kind of create that number one from what they already have, then they don't need to go out and spend all their prospects on a Dylan Cease. But if they can't, then they can do it at that time. So I agree. Senga's the linchpin to everything.
All right, so I come to you because I just don't know the answer. And we had people calling up yesterday, and all I could do was surmise. Iglesias was so important to what the Mets did last year, both in the room and he hit .337 as well. Why the lack of interest completely, especially after Madrigal went down? Why don't they want any part of him?
Yeah, I thought after Madrigal went down that there would be some interest at least, because there really didn't seem like there was much of any before. And quite honestly, I'm flabbergasted that none of the other 29 teams have gone after this guy.
Is this something that we don't know? I mean, you dealt with him all the time. Is he a good guy?
He is a good guy, and he was a good clubhouse guy. I think it's as simple as two things. One is, I don't think this front office believed that what he did last year was real, that he can repeat it, especially at an advanced age. A lot of it was batting average based. A lot of it was, he was batting .400 for a lot of his early time here, and I just don't think the Mets front office thinks that is repeatable. And the other part of it is, if they don't think it's repeatable, then they don't want him here taking up a guaranteed roster spot when they have two young players in Luis Angel Acuna and Brett Beatty, who they want to give time to. Maybe not on opening day, but in that first third of the season, there's a real thought that Acuna and Beatty can be there and can be helpful pieces. But if Iglesias is around, they're not going to be able to have space for him. So whether you agree with it or not, I mean, obviously Iglesias was a huge part of not only what the Mets did last year, but who they were. Their whole identity was kind of tied up in that OMG mentality. So you do lose a little bit of that without him. But one thing about David Stearns that I have learned since covering him the past couple of years is that he's very convicted in what he believes in. And if he thinks that, say, not pursuing Jose Iglesias because you want to give chances for young players, or not pursuing Jose Quintana because you're comfortable with the depth that you have in-house, he's not going to panic. He's not going to change his tune just based on an injury or two. He's going to stick with it, and I think we've seen that over the past month with how Stearns has operated here.
Now, I've heard, Anthony, that underneath the numbers, the deep dive underneath the numbers, analytic teams don't like him at all, Iglesias. Is that what you're hearing as well? Because I guess that's what the Mets are saying. They don't think it's sustainable, so the .337 wasn't real. And analytic people don't go nuts over batting average anyway. Could it be that, when you go under the hood, there's not much there?
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It's a very batting average-based profile. Me personally, I like batting average. I like guys who can hit .300, and Iglesias has done that for a lot of his career. But this isn't also just the Mets thing. If you look back 2 years ago, Iglesias got DFA'd, was released around the middle of the season, I believe by the Padres, and sat out the rest of the year because he couldn't find a major league job anywhere. And again, this is even before the OMG stuff. This was the guy who's been around a long time, a well-respected veteran, someone who's hit 300 plus at the highest level and done it. It's just not a skill set that's valued in a front office these days. And I think you're probably looking at a situation here where teams say, okay, we'll take a shot on you in a minor league deal. And Iglesias was saying, well, minor league deal, well, hang on a second. Like, look at what I've done. Look at what I've accomplished. I deserve a guaranteed spot somewhere. Like I said, I understand in a vacuum why the Mets aren't doing it. The fact that 30 teams across baseball are saying we don't want this guy, to me, is a little perplexing.
Now, the thing that I would have a problem with, I understand Madrigal is a veteran guy who could play all over, but if they decide that the backup infielder at some point is going to be Acuna, isn't that counterproductive? This is a guy that people think could actually be a starter, and you're taking away some of his progress by not playing him every day. You've got a shortstop that plays every single day, so he's not going to see that much action if he's sitting on the bench. Is that the right way to use that prospect?
Yeah, and as I said earlier, I think there's a pretty solid chance that Acuna will end up at AAA to start the year. Not just because of the playing every day thing, but I think it's easy to get fooled into thinking he's a finished product because he came up in September last year and was really incredible right away and did some really nice things for the Mets down the stretch. And basically they didn't lose anything, missing Francisco Lindor for the final couple weeks of the season there. But if you look at the bigger picture of Acuna, he struggled a bit at AAA last year. He was very inconsistent. He went through a couple of deep slumps there over the course of the summer, and I think Mets officials are looking at that bigger picture of the whole summer versus a 2.5 week stretch at the end of the year. I don't think they think Acuna is a finished product. So, yes, to answer your question, I do think he's going to go to AAA. But remember last year, Mark Vientos started out at AAA. And by the end of May, he was up and up for good. I think that's what the Mets are looking at with Acuna, that if he goes down to Syracuse, has a good month, has a good 6 weeks, he can come up and at that point be essentially a finished product. Brett Beatty is the other one who's in a little bit of a different camp because he's had so much minor league time over these years now that I'm not sure you need to have him playing every day. The Mets are more concerned about what he can do defensively. Can he play second base in addition to third? Can he maybe even play a little bit of shortstop? Because if he can, and he has a strong spring, which he's already started doing with a homer, a bunch of hits already, he's the guy I could see more than Acuna being there at the end of the bench on opening day.
We're talking with Anthony DiComo. He covers the Mets as their beat writer on MLB.com. People try to, read the tea leaves, connect the dots. So the Mets have some starting pitching injuries. The Yankees reportedly are trying to trade Marcus Stroman. I've seen a lot of stories out there that the Mets could be interested in Stroman. I don't see the fit. Is there any interest at all?
Yeah, I've seen some of the fantasy baseball trade ideas people are throwing around. Starling Marte for Marcus Stroman. The Mets would love to get rid of Marte's salary. They, it's just a piece that, while it fits in their roster, they don't necessarily need to be paying all that money to Marte for a guy who's essentially a platoon DH and the short side of a platoon at this point in his career. But I don't know if the Stroman thing is a fit. Again, similar to a Jose Quintana, if the Mets are going to make a rotation play at this point, I think they're looking more at, okay, down the road, can we find some upside? Can we find a guy who can be a number one, a number two type for us? And Marcus Stroman's just not that guy at this point in his career. He's more of a, we're going to go out there and I'm going to give you some innings, I'm going to get some balls on the ground. And I just don't think it's something the Mets are interested in at this point.
All right, so you've been around the team the whole spring training. You know what they have. You see what they have. Obviously, the addition of Soto is unbelievably important. But do you think they're better than the Phillies and the Braves?
I think they have to prove it. I think they have the talent to be better. I think they have the talent certainly to have the best lineup in the NL East. The rotation piece is troubling for me. The Braves, I think, run pretty decently, even losing Max Fried. I like a lot of the pitchers. They've managed to develop some interesting guys, Schwellenbach chief among them, that gives you, some indication that they could be pretty good. The projection systems love the Braves right now. Interestingly, the projection systems hate the Phillies, who I think has the second best rotation in baseball after the Dodgers. They're older guys, which I think plays into some of the skepticism on the computers. But the Phillies have been there. They've done that. Yes, the Mets beat them in a playoff series last year, but the Phillies were the better team for a big chunk of the season. So they're really tightly bunched together, and I don't want to sound like it's a cop-out answer. I think the Mets definitely have the talent to win the NL East. They need to prove it in my eyes. And by prove it, I mean they need to show me that they have enough starting pitching to get through 162 and beat the good teams when it matters.
How's it been dealing with Soto last year? For the 1 year he was at the Yankees, he was very easy to get along with, easy to talk to. Have you found that in a Met uniform?
Yeah, so far so good. He's I think maybe that year in New York is a good primer for him of what to expect in the market because, frankly, while the Mets might not be quite the Yankees in terms of media attention, there's a lot of attention around this team right now. There's a lot of people who, look at the Mets and think that they could be on the cusp of maybe taking some interest away from the Yankees in New York. And look, we've had this conversation before many times when the Mets get good of is it a Yankee town, is it a Met town, and people love to argue over it. But with Steve Cohen's money now and what he's pumping into the team on an annual basis, and especially with the run that the Mets went on last year, and it sure seems like Cohen is not going to give up here until he wins a title or maybe 2 or 3. This is a real runway for the Mets to do something special, to make some new fans that might have been more interested in going to the Bronx in the past. So we'll see. But as for Soto, he's a big piece of that rivalry now, going from the Yankees to the Mets. And I don't think you're going to find too many people who don't expect him to have a huge year.
I'll tell you what, get ready for that series in May because he's going to hear boos like he's never heard before when the Mets come to Yankee Stadium. I just know it because the fans feel like they were left at the altar. And I kept telling everybody all year, it's going to come down to who makes him the best offer. That's all there is to it. You could love him all you want. If he wants to go somewhere else, there's no attraction like there was with Judge. It was just a 1-year stop.
Right, and it's not like this guy grew up in pinstripes, right? He was not someone who came through the Yankee system. He wasn't a Yankee fan as a kid. He wasn't any of that stuff. So I think he saw, opportunity here. I would have said yes to $765 million as well. But I think what would be truly galling to me if I were a Yankee fan were some of the comments that he feels like he has a better chance to win here long-term than he did in the Bronx, because that's something that forever, for my entire lifetime and years as well, Michael, you could hang your hat on the Yankees having the best chance of anyone in the league to win a World Series and, to win over the next decade or for the next 2 decades. But right now, Juan Soto is saying out loud that he thinks it's the Mets. It's an interesting time for this rivalry. I would love to see the rivalry kind of become renewed in that way that we probably haven't really seen here since, I guess, 99, 2000.
Well, the thing that I pushed back on what he said, Anthony, and we're talking with Anthony DiComo of MLB.com, was you look at the runway the Mets have to get to the World Series, and then you look at the runway the Yankees have to get to the World Series. Yankees is much easier. The American League is not that great anymore, and the National League is loaded. So to say that the Mets have a better chance, I don't know how he looks at it. If he wants to say the Mets have a better team, you could argue that point, but you can't say they have a better chance to get to the World Series when the Yankees do, because they have fewer potholes to get through.
Yeah, look, the Dodgers are the big one. As long as the Dodgers are around, that's always going to be an issue. But if you do look at the divisions themselves, the AL East and the NL East, the Red Sox are making some noise right now. The Orioles still have youth on their side, at least for now. I'm not so sure about the other 2 teams, the Blue Jays and the Rays, what they're up to. But in the NL East, yes, you have this power trio of the Mets, the Braves, and the Phillies. The Phillies are starting to age out a little bit. I still think they're going to be very good this year. They may well win the division, but that rotation is old. That lineup is old, and it's probably not going to be too long here before they start to decline a bit. The Braves, we'll see. They've still got all of these players under contract, these position players, the Acuñas and the Albies of the world, guys who are going to be here forever, Matt Olson. But they're not so young anymore either. So I do think there's a runway here for the Mets to kind of rise up and be the team that takes the NL East. And again, maybe not this year, but maybe next year. And maybe for the back half of the 2020s, the Mets are kind of in contention for that division title every year, whereas the Braves and the Phillies suddenly are not. And in the AL, maybe the Yankees have a little bit of a fight on their hands as well. So we'll see. It's so hard to project these things, Michael, year over year. You don't know how teams are going to operate. You don't know how guys are going to develop. But I do know this. If Steve Cohen is going to be the number 1 or at least 1A to the Dodgers in terms of pumping money into his payroll every single year, it's hard to be bad when you're running up $300 million payrolls every year. It's just hard to be bad. And I think that's probably what Juan Soto was looking at when he said that, was that this team is willing to spend money, and as long as they're willing to do that, they're going to be pretty good.
Did you get the exclusive today, Anthony, with Seinfeld? I heard he's at Clover Park, so I expect a big exclusive on that.
Yeah, he's an intimidating guy to talk to because I've met him a couple times before, and I always find myself wanting to make jokes in front of him, and I'm like, what am I doing? He probably thinks I'm an idiot, but I think he's maybe a little funnier than I am.
It's funny though, if you try to make jokes to a comedian, it's a no-win because they're going to be very, very judgmental on the joke. So I don't think that's the route to take, Ant.
Exactly. It's like when people come up to me and try to tell me what the Mets are doing right and wrong. It's like I'm around them every day. I might have a little better perspective. I think Jerry Seinfeld's got a better perspective on comedy than I do.
Absolutely. Anthony, you're welcome on the show anytime. Thank you for giving us a couple of minutes.
Appreciate it, Michael. Take care.
Anthony DiComo of MLB.com. He covers the Mets, so the lay of the land there. It's going to be interesting what their rotation is at the start. There's not going to be a Manaea, and there's not going to be a Montas for at least 2 months. Manaea's saying it's going to be early in April. I'm somewhat dubious. Obliques take a long time, and if you think about a pitching motion, how difficult it is for that oblique to heal, they're going to have to take their time with him as well. So the top of that rotation, there's a lot of emphasis now on Clay Holmes, who's looked great, by the way. I think he's had 6 scoreless innings. He's been almost unhittable, but he was there early, and pitchers are always ahead of hitters early, but I don't want to take anything away because I'm a Clay Holmes fan. Yeah, I know he lost his closing role with the Yankees, but if you listen to the show over the last couple of years, I defended Clay Holmes all the time. Yankee fans wanted him out. He was terrible. The guy has filthy stuff, and now he's added a changeup, which makes him even more difficult to hit. I think it's going to be a smart pickup by David Stearns and the Mets. See if he lasts 3 years, and let's see if he can give them 6 innings and 30 starts. If he can, at $13 million a year, that is an absolute bargain they got. Hey, college basketball is reaching its most exciting stretch of the season. Right now, new customers on FanDuel get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $150 extra bucks to bet on everything from conference clashes to tournament upsets, and even who's cutting down the nets. Maybe you want to ride the red-hot Red Storm. By the way, they clinched at least a tie of the Big East, the 5th time Rick Pitino has led a team to a conference championship. You like Blue Bloods? Take Duke. Can Auburn hold on to the top seed? Well, you've been waiting to join FanDuel. There's no better time to do it than right now. The app is easy to use, and when you win, you'll get paid instantly. So visit FanDuel.com/K and get in on the college hoops action before March takes over. 21 plus, physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-HOPE-NY or 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or you can text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Grainger knows space at your facility is limited. As a maintenance specialist, you only have so many spots for backup products in your inventory roster, which means space on your bench comes at a premium. Well, when it comes to breadth and depth, Grainger's got you covered. They've got over 1 million industrial-grade products. Plus, fast delivery helps reduce the inventory you need to keep on hand, freeing up space and capital while giving your operation a winning edge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by a local branch. When you're a small business owner, having your bookkeeping and taxes in order comes at a cost. I'm not just talking about your money. I'm talking about your time, hours and hours that you could have spent actually growing your business. But guess what? It doesn't have to be that way thanks to Found. Found is a banking platform that doesn't just consolidate your financial ecosystem. Found automates manual activities like expense tracking and finding tax write-offs. Found makes staying on top of invoices and payments so easy. Oh, and by the way, other small businesses are loving Found too. This Found user said, quote, "Found is going to save me so much headache. It makes everything so much easier. Expenses, income, profits, taxes, invoices even," unquote. And Found has 30,000 five-star reviews just like this. Open a Found account for free at found.com/sports. That's found.com/sports. Found is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services are provided by Piermont Bank, member FDIC. Don't put this one off. Join thousands of small business owners who have streamlined their finances with Found.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the show. Game Time is brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey, because when it's game time, it's Tully time. 7 p.m. Islanders are in Boston to play the Bruins. Tullamore Dew, the original triple distilled, triple blended, triple cask matured Irish whiskey. Be sure to grab a Tullamore Dew. Try the new Tullamore Dew Honey during today's action. Glasses up to enjoying Tullamore Dew responsibly. I always love when I get a chance to see the beautiful face and hair and beard of Don LaGreca. He has dropped in, getting ready for his show.
You didn't have to put me on.
I'd love to have you on.
That's not my angle. I just wanted to. I don't get to see you that often, and I wanted to come in and say hello.
I was on with Carlin and Bart. And,
you were?
Yeah, absolutely.
How are they doing? I don't get to see them.
Terrific. Carlin told a story about he dated a girl in college, broke up with her. 8 years later, she showed up at the Fan, and I said, I never thought you had that in you, that a woman would want you so badly. And he said, once you have Carlin, he said, once you go fat, you can't go back.
Is that what it is?
That's what he said.
She started working at the Fan because she wanted to get back with him?
No. She showed up at the...
meaning...
Just the pop-in 8 years later.
Really?
I mean, you see that with... I mean, I could see that with, George Clooney, but Carlin...
I had a girl that I was seeing at the time call up the call-in line at the Fan when I was doing updates as a way to try to get in touch with me when I had already broken things off. And that was awkward.
Then did you talk to her?
No.
Is she still out there?
To the best of my knowledge, yeah. I mean, I'm not going, scrolling through the obits or anything, but I think she's still out there. Well, this is like 96, man. That's a long time ago.
If you're still out there, the number's 1-800-919-ESPN.
I'm not even going to throw the name in because somebody will call claiming.
Right.
No, that's I'm surprised. I didn't hear that story.
Yeah.
Had a hankering for Carlin?
A big hankering. And he said that in college. How about this? He said right now he's about 305. He said in college he was pushing 350.
Well,
350.
When I first met him in like 96, he was a lot bigger than he is now. Yeah. But it was different because he was younger. So it was almost kind of forgivable.
But he wears it well. He doesn't look 305.
He's a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
It's strange. You're right. I mean, I don't think it's healthy for him to be that way.
I yelled at Bart. I mean, Bart is a physical specimen. Why doesn't he push it on Chris? And he said, I tried.
Well, how hard did he try?
He said he tried to get him on protein.
Stop.
He said, but then Chris would eat like protein cookies every single day. So you can't do it every day.
Well, you never took me aside when I was repugnant. Not once. When I was dressing poorly, the only thing, the only intervention you had was on the tidy whities. That's it.
And also, I told you about the mullet. You don't care what I have to say.
But mullet, I didn't care at that point because that was during COVID.
I took you aside.
But I'm saying, but that was a choice that I made. I was wandering around, needing help, and you didn't help me. I was overweight. I had the stupid goatee, which went out in '98.
I had my own issues.
No, you look great.
Yeah,
you were good.
Right now, by the way, I don't know if you could notice. I went at the end of the Yankee season. I was 244.
Okay, which
really
is
pushing it.
But you're tall.
Yeah, but still, it was too much. And today I weighed in. What do you think the number was?
218.
217.
Oh, nice.
How about you?
You do look great. You do look great.
All right, so I wanted to ask you about the Islander Ranger game, which I watched.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because Optima's back, so I said, let me watch the Ranger. Yeah, and why would the Islanders play that poorly? I mean, that was an important game for them. They probably sealed their fate.
They're not that great.
But to get blown out 5-1 at home?
Well, you get your goaltender, which is supposed to be the best part of your team, Ilya Sorokin, gives up 5 goals on 11 shots.
He can't beat Shesterkin. It's weird. It's like something's in his head.
But Shesterkin's also under 500 against the Islanders. It's kind of strange. They can't score. Do you realize the Islanders going into that game, and I don't think it's changed, had the 31st kill and the 32nd power play.
Not good.
How are you supposed to function when you're that poor at special teams? And Barzell's been hurt, and they've got other injuries too. But no, They play. I think they're done. I know mathematically they're not, but after a loss like that, they got a game against Boston.
To make trades?
Well, I guess if you feel like there's a couple of pieces you want to trade, go ahead. But you probably would understand this. Malkin and Ledecky with a brand new building, probably see that if we can sneak in, we've got the goaltender. I want to try to fill that building. I mean, March 7th is the deadline, so that's coming up next week. So you're going to have what? 18 to 20 games left in the season. I don't know how many of them will be home games. Can you, if you're the Islanders, can you afford to have an empty building and be done? Or are you going to try to sell the fans, hey, maybe we can sneak in, make a run? I mean, they're only, 5 points out of the playoff spot.
But jumping over teams, too.
No,
One of them being the Rangers.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
But when you're the Rangers, you can send out a letter and say, we're going to rebuild, right? And you don't have to worry about killing your fan base because you're the Rangers. There's certain teams that can do that. But there's other teams like the Islanders, like the Devils, like maybe the Columbus Blue Jackets, what they're going through right now, see value in sneaking in because it means a couple of home gates, fill your building. I'm not saying it's the right thing, but wouldn't you think Malkin and Ledecky would probably pressure Lou to say, listen, let's not sell off. Let's not give up when we still have 6 weeks left in the season after this.
Well, the pressure, I think that's on them. Do they have the guts to get rid of Lou?
If you think Lou's the problem.
But I mean, he hasn't built a winning team.
But wouldn't the resume suggest that there wouldn't be an outcry if they did? Now, you'd say, well, wait a minute, we went to the third round back-to-back years, but that ship certainly has sailed here, right? They had their opportunity to win the Cup, didn't win it. If they missed the playoffs this year, that's back-to-back years missing the playoffs. And before that,
in a new building.
Out in the first round. Like that's what you're looking at over the last couple of years, right, of not being able to really make any kind of a run. And Lou didn't have success in Toronto. His last Cup was in 2003. Now, I think the guy is amazing, but can you look at it and say we have to go in a different direction?
Isn't he closing in on 80?
Yeah. But never mind the age, is that you start to distance yourself from those two runs that they had, and you say, is this really where we need to go here? Would the fans go nuts? I mean, you can ask an Islander fan. Would an Islander fan go nuts if they fired? Are you going to let him fire another coach? Are you going to fire Patrick Waugh? I think Patrick Waugh is doing a good job. I just don't think they got a ton of talent. So whose fault's that? Is it the coach's fault? How many coaches are you going to go through, right? You went, Torts walked away, and this is now 2 coaches removed from that. You got to keep firing coaches?
Right. Well, he does have a habit of doing that. He did that with the Devils.
He did it with the Devils because there was success. 3 Stanley Cups, 3 different coaches.
Yeah.
He fired Robbie Ftorek with 8 games left in the season when they fell out of first place, and they turned around and won a cup. But, Torts, Trotz walks away, and then, Lambert, you fire him. You're going to fire Patrick Waugh. At what point do you look in the mirror and say, maybe I just haven't built a good enough team?
And he is legendary, so there's a lot of heft attached to it if you get rid of him.
But the Devils said, it was time. Toronto's, you can say that, Michael.
Right.
You can say, but I'm just wondering, would an Islander fan be, oh my God, I can't believe they fired Lou? Or would they go, okay, it's time for something new? I think they would probably lean on the latter.
Were they upset when they fired Milbury?
No, they were not.
Now, in that game, they also the Rangers lost Miller and Fox. What's the? Do we know what the deal is with them?
Well, no, Fox went on the IR.
Okay,
so he's on or the injured list. And so he's on the injured list. So was that 10 games?
Well, his shoulder. His shoulder.
Yeah. They say upper body, but the way he came down, the way he was nursing the arm when he went off the ice. I haven't got the latest on Miller. They did call up. They already had Zach Jones up. They called up another defenseman, Robertson. So that they might have to go with 2 new defensemen in the game against Toronto. They play Friday and Sunday, and that I think they found something with that fourth line, the way Brodzinski played with Rempe and Othman. But you're like 2 defensemen. That's not very good. But they're only 2 out of a playoff spot. I still think they're better than all the teams they're chasing after. You saw Ottawa lose again the other night. That's 5 straight losses for them. I don't think Boston's very good. They got like a minus 26 goal differential. I don't know how Columbus is doing it. They've had tons of injuries. Of course, they lost Johnny Gaudreau during the offseason. I don't know how they're doing it. I think they'll fade. So I think the Rangers will make the playoffs. But let's see if these injuries turn out to be a major problem for them. Fox is a big loss, huge loss. Hopefully it's not going to go any longer than the required games out because of being on the injured list.
We're talking with Don LaGreca. You know that voice. I spent 22 years talking with him. Now he's on Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg. So let's get to that. How's the new setup working out? Is Peter more palatable without me around? What do you think?
I think he's thriving.
You think so?
Yeah.
So he's enjoyed me being gone.
I don't know if he enjoy. But he definitely is taking on his new role with a vigor and a sense of enthusiasm.
You probably miss me a little bit more.
Oh, of course. Well,
Right.
because wouldn't that make sense? We worked together for 22 years. You work with him for 9.
Right.
That's double. That's more than double. So really,
Yes, it is.
And I don't know. You don't have a lot in common with Peter.
No, it would probably be nothing.
I'm really looking forward to how we're going to handle this baseball season.
With Peter?
It's going to be different.
Yeah? You think he's going to be into it, locked in? Isn't this the time that you guys have your meeting, though? I mean, are they going to get upset that you're talking here?
Probably.
Yeah?
I apologize for that.
No. Don't apologize to me.
If John Winthrop's listening, that's who I was just apologizing to.
Oh.
Has nothing to do with you.
Gotcha.
No, I'll go do the meeting. I'll go. I didn't come in here I wasn't fishing to get on the air.
I'd love to have you on, though, whenever you want. If you want to do 2 hours with me, you feel like stretching your lungs, do it.
No, I should get into the meeting.
Because I listen all the time when I'm in the car, and I don't think you talk as much as you do when I was there.
Really?
Yeah. I think they've cut you back from 70% because Peter talks more and Alan talks more than I do.
There is something to that, right?
Yeah.
Because Peter's now involved in every segment.
Right.
That was not the case during your show.
Right, and I think Alan is more of a talkative host than I am.
Well, especially now
I was
we're
more
in
of
his
a point
wheelhouse.
guard.
No.
Yeah, no. Alan's more of Jalen Brunson. He's going to go to the hoop a lot.
Oh yeah, he's going to score. He's
yeah,
got a lot
I know.
to say.
I'm looking for assists.
He's got a lot to say. But this is also the time for him, right? We've got the Knicks and everything that's happening with them. It's been fun. But listen, I agree. This was important. This relationship was pretty important. So it's
What, the
gonna
two
be
of us?
Yes,
Oh.
I always thought it was.
I guess it wasn't to Peter. He doesn't even drop by when I'm in the studio. It's sad. Although I did get a text from him the other day because one of the things I got him
tickets or something.
No. I got his he and his wife a baby Bjorn.
Okay.
And I said, this calms kids down. It's unbelievable. And he actually said, look at what this did. And she was crying, and they put her in the baby Bjorn, and it just shut her up.
You are a good gift giver when it comes with the kids. You do well for us.
I do well. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you listen when you drive in at all?
Oh yeah.
You sure?
I'm usually parking right when you start because I try to get in early. I got to make up for the other guy.
What, you get in at 1?
No, I'm usually parking the car and then I get lunch, and by the time I get up to the office, it's like 1:20, 1:25.
So when you say make up for the other guy, you mean Peter?
Yes.
Gotcha. All right, go to the meeting, Don. Good to hear from Don LaGreca. You could hear so much more of him starting at 3 on Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg. Let's talk to Richard in Manhattan. Richard, let's talk to us. What's up? Richard. Wow, that's a first. Richard hung up after he heard me talking to Don. Can you believe that? The audacity, the gall, the cubes. Pierre in Putnam. Pierre.
What's up, Michael K? This is like an absolute pleasure catching up with you again.
Oh, thanks for calling, buddy.
I didn't really have a sports comment. I really just heard your voice. I listened to you for over 20 years. Typically, I'm a teacher, so I was in the car around 3 o'clock. Absolutely great hearing your voice. And then you brought Don in, so it was like a trip down nostalgia's road.
I love it.
You are an awesome radio host.
Oh, now we lost him just as he was saying something complimentary. By the way, Travis Kelce was on with our very own Pat McAfee, and he confirmed today, which what Beach, the GM, kind of hinted at yesterday, that he said, I'm coming back for sure. This is Kelce saying to McAfee, going to try to get into the best shape I've been this offseason and get back to the mountaintop. He read a text from Kelce. So Kelce sent him a text. Kelce wrote in the text, got a real bad taste in my mouth with how I played in that last game and how I got the guys ready for battle. I can't go out like that. So there he is. He is going to come back. He has an $11.5 million roster bonus on March 15th that would trigger in the final year of his contract. So he told Pat McAfee he is, in fact, coming back. We want you to take us into Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg. So this is when you get to be the co-host. Let me give you the number. Line them up is what I say. This is the line them up session. 1-800-919-3776. You want to talk? You want to be on New York radio? You want to be on a great show? Now's the time to do it. 1-800-919-3776. We'll call this segment Line 'em Up, coming up in just a moment. Hey, It may be the off-season, but every season is Bigelow tea season. You know I'm picky about what I drink, especially on days I have a show. One of the first things I do each day is reach for a mug full of Bigelow tea. I love the different flavor options, and it's perfect for someone who makes his living behind a microphone. Want to know what keeps me going? Look no further than my cup of Bigelow tea next to me in the studio. So grab a mug full of your favorite Bigelow tea and tea proudly. Bigelow tea, the official hot tea of the New York Yankees. Hey everybody, it's Michael K, and I love when I get to talk about my friends at PC Richard & Son. It is a local company, family-owned, and I trust them. I really do. The experts at PC Richard & Son use a 4-step mattress fitting process so that your new bed fits you perfectly. They guarantee it. Right now, march into savings with up to 60% off select Sealy mattresses, up to 75% off clearance floor models, and get up to $300 on Stearns & Foster and Tempur-Pedic that can be applied toward anything else in the store. So do what I do, get to PC Richard & Son and march into savings for your new mattress.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod at checkout.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds or Skims, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. The secret's out. Businesses that want to grow, grow with Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Untuckit uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/network. All lowercase. Go to shopify.com/network to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/network.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Couple of quick Yankee hits. They're playing the Phillies right now. Home run by Anthony Volpe. Another misplay, according to all the reports I see, by Jason Dominguez in left field. I've told you before, that's an issue. He should be in center. That's his position. That's where he's played most of his career in the minors. And Cody Bellinger is willing to play left field. I don't get it. I mean, because you're thinking about what you're going to do when you play backups. When you play backups, it doesn't matter. So then give Jason Dominguez a day off. I don't get it. This is why you're playing him in left rather than center? So that Trent Grisham will play center when he plays occasionally? Are you kidding me? How many games is Trent Grisham going to play? You should be making Jason Dominguez at 22, who's an important part of this team, in center field. I know they've got all spring training, but he's already misplayed one ball. Well, ball just went off his glove in the outfield. I don't understand what they're doing. I'd say by the end of spring training, when the Yankees open the season at the stadium against Milwaukee, he should be in center field. And Aaron Boone said, hey, they are willing to investigate that change. And still no word on Giancarlo Stanton. They don't even know when he's going to get back from New York. The whole thing is very mysterious to me. Very mysterious. 1-800-919-3776. Let's go to D in Morristown. D.
Hello.
Hello, D.
Michael.
How you doing?
Oh, listen. First time, long time. I love your show.
Thank you.
I love hearing you and Don together for a couple of minutes on the radio together. It definitely was a memorable moment.
Thanks.
So, Mr. K, my question to you is, would you like to join or at least test out for an organization called Mensa? I'm a member. It's an organization for really smart people. And after listening to you for so many years, I think you have the lexicon and your use of words. It's impressive. So I would like to offer you an opportunity.
What is the cutoff point for IQ to get into Mensa? Was it 140?
It's not about your IQ. It's just about how smart you are overall. Because when you take the test, you don't get your IQ score. It's either you're in or you're not.
I would look into it because you know what? You know me, D, by listening. I'm the sort of guy that if I was in Mensa, I would say it constantly at the beginning of every single show. I would say it every time I meet somebody. By the way, I'm Michael K. I'm in Mensa. So for those that don't know, Mensa is the smartest people in the world. I don't know if I qualify. I feel like I could give it a go. I might just miss out. But I'd be interested in looking into it. Let's go to Alberto in Brooklyn. Alberto.
How you doing, Michael?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. You know, I've called the show back when in its former iteration. I called like a handful of times. Each time I just happened to get in when you weren't there, so it's an honor.
Oh, welcome aboard, buddy.
Thank you. I wanted to make a comment about That's Life by Frank Sinatra being played at the end of the game.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, I'm a season ticket holder, and I go to a ton of games. And whenever I hear New York being played after a loss, it doesn't bother me.
Didn't bother me either.
Until Game 5.
Right.
I went to every single playoff game, and it was like a slow – and I stayed till the end, sir. I stayed till the end, and it was like a slow kick in the teeth to see these guys celebrating and hearing Frank serenade them. So to change over to That's Life, I appreciate it. I'm ready to embrace it, and it just didn't sting ever until Game 5.
I hear you. A lot of people said that bothered them as well. But you know what? I guess it became background noise to me because I was on the field after that game doing the post-game hit on the Yes Network, and I didn't even know what was being played. I mean, at the end of the game, I walk out of the ballpark. Again, it bothered so many people. So I can't tell you that it's wrong if it bothered you. I'm just telling you, never even fazed me. Became background noise. But I could actually understand. That's the best argument that I could hear. That after Game 5, while the Dodgers are celebrating on your field after winning the World Series, the Yankees probably shouldn't have played anything. They probably shouldn't have played anything that day. But like an April game, if they lose against the Brewers and there's Frank Sinatra singing New York, New York, it wouldn't faze me. It just wouldn't. But people are different. And it's not always going to be That's Life. I mean, that's the perfect choice, which they played after a loss at Steinbrenner Field last week, or maybe earlier this week. It could be any number of Frank Sinatra songs. But to me, after you lose, That's Life is perfect. It's still Frank. It's not New York, New York. But, I mean, will people have a problem that you even play any kind of music after you lose a game? Again, after Game 5, I get it. It's bothersome. It probably rankled some people. And they made enough of a storm that the Yankees said, you know what, you're right. And I give the Yankees credit. They listened to their fans. So it bothered their fans that they decided, let's move on. And for those that don't remember, it used to be Frank got played after wins. Liza Minnelli got played after losses. Same song. But then Liza Minnelli's people called up, I think, George Steinbrenner and said, well, that's not fair. Why does she only get played after losses? So they didn't play Liza at all, and they kept playing Frank. And now it's going to be Frank, but singing something else. Coming up, Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg. Oh, it's going to be great. They've had a big planning meeting. They've got you locked and loaded. I'm sure Alan's going to give you his take on that Knicks victory that came close to being a horrendous loss. So he was all over it. He was at the Garden last night. So they'll talk about a lot of things. And we'll talk about a lot of things as well. Now, tomorrow, unfortunately, I got to tell you guys this. I'm not on. Yeah, I'm not, because the Mets are playing. So the Mets are on from starting at 1 o'clock. So the next time I'll talk to you will be Monday. But I'll miss you tomorrow. I really will. Don't forget me just because the Mets are on. But I'll be back Monday at 3. So I hope you have a great weekend, everybody. Coming up, Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg right here on 880 ESPN. Hey, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just beginning on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting. So even if you missed the first few minutes of the game or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can make your picks from the first whistle until the final buzzer. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now's the perfect time to join. New FanDuel customers get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/K to join today. That's FanDuel.com/K for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
You know what? Check yourself.
Hear more from Michael K. weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN.
Suck it up and like it.
The ESPN New York app and your smart speakers.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.